Episode of Walk with Your Boy. Today I'm not going to be on the treadmill though. We'll be out in the garden doing stuff because I already did my workout already. So I'm just going to be doing some stuff around the garden, giving you guys a little couple tips and tricks and stuff like that, letting you see, what I be doing on a daily when it comes to working in my garden because a lot of people don't look at this like it's a job. It's not a strenuous job, and you ain't got a time clock, but it is work. And if you want it to be good, you need to treat it as such. So the first thing we'll be talking about is what to grow. All right. So what should you grow? Your first plants in your garden. What should you grow? All right. Now, when I first started gardening, me and my wife, and my kids, we thought, shit, all the shit we see in the grocery store. We thought, let's grow all that shit. You know what I'm saying? We want to grow potatoes, corn, tomatoes, apples, oranges. We want to grow all that shit. But they don't tell you that most of the vegetables and shit that they get in your grocery store aren't growing locally because they're seasonal. So you have to be in the right season in order to grow the plants and vegetables and stuff that they grow. And a lot of these fruits that we getting off these trees, the plants have been grown 10, 15 years ago. So putting a seed in the ground ain't going to produce any results right off the bat. It's going to be a long and steady process. But stuff like, let's talk about this too as well. You have two different types of growing, mediums. I don't mean by mediums like dirt. I mean like you have perennials, which are plants that'll come back every year, regardless if you put a seed in the ground. And that's usually like your trees, your fruits, and stuff like that. But there's also vegetables that do the same thing. Tomatoes is a good perennial too as well. And a lot of people that grow vegetables will take cuttings from their tomatoes and their potatoes and their bell peppers and peppers and stuff like that, and they'll put them in, they'll transplant those or they'll clone those for the next season. So they'll keep them alive as house plants for the next season. And there's perennials. I just told you about that. And then there's annuals. Annuals are plants that after they produce, they die off. They're not going to come back. They're not going to spring back to to life the next season. And those plants are usually what we buy in the stores for like seeds and stuff like that. Squash, uh, corn, what else? Some melons, but melons and watermelons and stuff, they're perennials too as well. If the weather permits, they'll last all season. They'll die back, but they won't totally die. Asparagus is a perennial as well. Asparagus. There's a couple other ones like lettuces. Some lettuces are perennials. Some lettuces are annuals. Because with the lettuces, you can just cut off the piece that you want. You can still keep taking from them. And as long as there's nutrients in the ground, they'll keep growing. So those are just little tidbits. So perennials and annuals, don't forget about those. And also, don't forget about seasons. Now, a lot of people think that you can only plant when the weather gets warm. That's not how it works. You can plant in the wintertime, and those seeds will carry over depending on how deep you bury them in the soil. They'll carry over, and if the weather's not too bad, like there's not flooding or there's not an animal digging up, your vegetables and stuff like that, or your seeds, then they'll germinate when the ground warms up, not when the sun gets, not when it gets hotter, when the ground warms up. And this is something I noticed since I've been doing gardening, and I've been doing gardening now for, and it's not gardening where I'm at, it's farming, because farming you have to amend the soil every year, which means once you take the plants up, you got to put something in the ground to keep the ground fertile. If not, in this area I live in, it's like the deserts. It's in Nevada. It's real sandy. Most of the water that you put in the ground, if it's not directly on the roots, will the plants won't get it. You got to water directly on the roots sometimes, and you got to amend the soil. You got to put stuff in the soil that when the water hits it, it will activate. That's the nutrients. So in areas like Nevada, you have to amend every year, which is considered farming. But places like down south, uh, Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, uh, Georgia, and all those places, Midwest to Southern, their soils are more compact. They have clay, which is a mineral that the ground uses, has a lot of copper and iron in it, and the ground uses that, and it replenishes itself because it's a real stiff and solid surface up under the soil. So when the roots penetrate into that stuff, they're not gonna just suck it all up. But this sand, shit, one season and your planter box is done. It won't grow anything after that season, depending on how much you got from it. So if you got a good haul from your vegetables one season in the planter box out here in the desert, the next year you're gonna need to amend that, or that same year you're gonna need to amend it, or till those old crops back into the soil, which is another way of doing it as well. Instead of pulling up the whole plant when the seasons is done, kind of let it die back. Don't water it, die it back, and then get you a little portable tiller, or you can just use a hoe if you like manual labor. I'm not talking about no hoe on the street. You can use a hoe and chop the plant back into the soil. And what that does is it adds the green, which is the nitrates, back into the soil and whatever nutrients that were in the stems and the roots and stuff as well. So that's a point that a lot of people don't understand. And if you ever came across an almanac or a planter's guide, it'll show you how to do that stuff. But it's really easy. It's not that hard. I mean, some of these plants really draw the nutrients out of the soil. That's why you have to put nutrients in it unless you want a small yield or you want your plants to be subpar for that season. So I know when my plants produce the next season over in the wintertime, I am amending. I'm putting fertilizer or I'm putting manure around the roots, and I'm tilling it, not tilling it, but agitating the dirt so it soaks in. And then when it snows and everything, those nutrients literally get packed into the soil because the snow when it melts packs it in. And so the next season, the roots will be real fertile, and my plants will be vibrant when it comes time for them to produce, fruits. But my biggest plants that I have right now that I have to make sure I amend every year is my grapes and my strawberries because they're perennials here that come back every year. My trees, of course, I fertilize those every year, and I have apple tree. I have apple trees, peach tree, pear, and some pine trees, and a pistachio tree. And I didn't just put all that stuff in the ground at one time. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for like 11 years. So we've been growing as we go. And this is me doing it consistently. At first, I was just like, oh, let's go put some seeds in the ground, kids. My kids were real young. So they loved to play in the dirt and stuff like that. And so I would take them outside, buy a pack of seeds, and tell them this is going to grow. So they would always be interested in doing stuff like that. As they got older, they started asking questions like, when is it going to grow? How is it going to grow? So I had to start learning this stuff in order to pass it on to them because they were curious. Now that they're adults, man, I don't give a shit about that. But I kept it up because it's fun. I mean, now that I'm retired, it gives me something to do during the day. You know, I come out here, these plants are relaxing, you know, to sit around these plants, watch them grow, see your progress and shit like that, your progression. But you don't have to be an expert at everything. You just got to become brilliant with the basics. What that means is figure out one thing at a time. So my biggest problem was to figure out how to make things grow in sand. And to make stuff grow in sand, first of all, you got to have things that can grow in arid conditions, that the soil uh, going to allow water to leach through faster than it is water in the plant itself. All right, let me look and see. Salute, y'all. Salutes Chief 18 Wheels, Bobby, Kenneth Powell, Scorpion. Salutes, man, for coming out. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for hitting that like button, guys. Thanks for hitting that like button. But yeah, man, watching this stuff has given me some insight on things because sand is a good medium for starting plants. But to maintain them, to get them to grow big and to produce is another thing. You're gonna have to put something other than just having sand because sand is a silica-based product, which means it's like glass. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these guys that do hydroponics and they have those little clay balls in there. If they just put water in there with that shit, nothing would grow. It would get to a certain point because the seed automatically comes with nutrients for the first stage of its life. The true leaves. Before the true kind, the seed has enough energy to produce all the way up to that point. The true leaves are the second layer of leaves that take place of the initial two leaves that come out of the seed. Okay, so once that happens, you need a secondary base of nutrients from the ground in order for that plant to continue growing. And in the end, that's hard to do. So you have to get stuff that's going to make the sand more nutrient rich. For instance, manure. That's why I got these chickens. And I know you out here with these chickens and stuff. I don't just have them for eggs. No, I have them for the manure because the manure is really rich in nitrogen, potassium, and phosphates, okay, or phosphorus. Now, that right there is the three things that a plant needs in order to grow and be able to grow, fruits. So, what it needs after that is a pollinator. That's what happened. And most of these plants pollinate themselves, like corn pollinates itself, squash pollinates itself, tomatoes, so much. Potatoes, not so much. Bell peppers, not so much. They need an additional pollinator. You can pollinate them yourself as well. But the thing is that these plants need something that they can hold on to. And manure is, especially chicken manure, is one of the best types. If you got cow manure, the bigger the animal, the more nutrients in its poop. So you got to watch out when you're using it because it could burn your plants. Smaller animal, not so much. That's why you can pile it on, mix it with the soil, and you'll have a dirt consistency type soil from sand in, in 2 seasons. Like the sand around my plants is like dirt, but the sand around that is sandy. It's just like on the beach, you know? So, same thing happens when you grow inside of a greenhouse. So, you got to pay attention to the pollinators. If you don't allow your greenhouse to be open to insects, you're not going to get a pollination. That means you got to go in there yourself with a Q-tip and a fan and agitate the pollen off plants and pollinate them yourself and shit like that. So it's not as complicated as it sounds because we've been doing this shit for shit since the dawn of time. We've always been farming. I think we've been farming longer than we've been, hunter gatherers because it doesn't make sense to be something, successful for so many years and it not come natural. And I think farming and gardening is natural to us. Uh, following a herd of animals is not successful in the long run because, you're in competition with all the other animals who, if you're in competition with large predators, you're not going to win because they're faster, stronger, and then plus they can attack your ass too. So you're not going to win like that. So farming has always been the staple to a successful, you know, uh, I would say colony or country or empire. If you got the farming down, then everything else will fall in line. The economy and all that shit will fall in line because people have a steady source of nutrition. They have a steady source of food. So they can perform a lot of labors because they'll always have something to replenish their energy. And small vegetables and fruits were the ideal for us. Berries, potatoes, tomatoes, corn, grapes, you know, squash, shit like that we eat on a daily basis. Shit that you can grow in 2 months in large quantities that will last you for a whole season. That type of stuff right there is what you wanna concentrate on. All right, let me see if some people in the chat was asking any questions. Uh, all right, we had somebody that was saying something earlier. So, do you think if there was this mass mending project on the West Coast, could they change the landscape to a greener environment? Oh, bro, all they have to do is allow the water from up north to come back down towards the West Coast. The water that's up by Washington State, up there where they have Puget Sound and all that shit, where they got the shipyards, because most of that water is being held up for the shipyards. That's how they fill their little shipping bays. They got this water dammed up that they can just release in there to raise the boats up off the stilts, put them back in the water, and then they drain it back out and put it back in there. It's like an elevator effect. Same way that they do the Panama Canal. They drain these ditches, lower them so they can switch the boats into another area. Then they raise them and move them and shit like that. So if they just allowed the water to come from up north back into California, because California is very fertile. You guys got to get out there in California where there's nothing but trees and grass. And you'll see where the water used to come through. All the grass is yellow. But the closer you start to get to these rivers and streams, I mean, even miles away from some of these rivers and streams, you'll see it starting to green back up. See, because the water just don't stay in the river. It's just not in that riverway. It's underground too as well. And you got to understand there's absorption. And when you got that much water, the absorption distance and rate is going to be way larger. So if they allow the water from up north, man, California be shit. Back like when I came to California back in the 80s. Yeah, let me see what else. Salute Scorpion Lawyer over here going in the chat shit. Okay. I watched the video on this project they did back in the day. They planted these tree lines from Canada down to Texas to save the topsoil from being blown away. Now that shit with the topsoil, the Great Dust Bowl wasn't like what they said it was. That was man-made. The Great Dust Bowl was caused when they started damming up all the rivers because they weren't expecting the ground to dry up so quick. See, because you have groundwater, which is the water that's about 1 to 12 feet, 1 to 12, maybe to 20 feet deep. Below that, you don't have groundwater no more. Now you have subterranean water. Anything below 20 feet is water that's coming specifically from the earth. No surface water involved. All right, so that's gonna hit bedrock and shit like that, and it's gonna cause the soil to dry up because that water is only gonna come up through an aquifer. It's not gonna seep through the land and shit like that. And then you have the groundwater, which is surface layer water that absorbs and from the rivers and streams and shit like that. So once you get that going, you'll have a whole surface of fertile ground because the ground has absorbed all that water. Plants will start growing. But yeah, So it's not that they planted trees to keep the topsoil, because topsoil is just the dirt that's settling on the surface. When you plant plants and they grow beyond the true leaves, it's below the topsoil. See, roots will grow up to 5 to 6 feet deep in the ground, and annuals will grow up to about a foot deep. When you got perennials that come in and stick around year after year, that keep coming back, those roots are going to grow beyond that point. They're going to grow feet deep versus perennials that only grow about, inches to a foot deep. So the topsoil, you don't even have to worry about that, because that's not really where the nutrients are. The nutrients are literally below the topsoil. So when they created the Dust Bowl, they could still plant out there, but they would have to go out there and water all that shit down to keep it from blowing all around. And that's what they were doing. They were just allowing it to just blow everywhere. So that was literally a man-made effect, and they turned it into a national emergency, which really wasn't. All right, so you're connecting the dots, cool. So what do you think they planted the tree lines for? Publicity, because they knew that those trees were going to take 5 to 10 years to become real trees. Saplings, it takes about 5 to 10 years for them to become real trees. If you plant an apple tree, it's going to take you about 5, 6, sometimes depending on how much direct water and fertilization you give it, it'll take 5, 6 to 10 years to produce fruits. When it produces fruits, it's a real tree. When it can reproduce itself. But if it's not, then it's just a sapling. It's just a plant. Same thing with cannabis. Cannabis, once it gets past a certain stage, it becomes a tree. And then it'll grow every season like clockwork, no problem. And then it'll start to develop its own ecosystem around it, because plants, believe it or not, create its own moisture too. Because as it's sucking water up, the leaves are uh, they're photosynthesizing the water through the leaves and making a mist, which that's what the leaves need. It needs that moisture, that humidity. And the more plants you got around one another, and that's another thing I wanted to talk about. The more plants you got around one another, the better your plants will grow, because they don't have to compete with the environment so much, because they've created their own little micro ecosystems within the realms. And I'm going to show you guys some pictures or some videos of what I'm talking about. Creating micro environments and shit like that. When you can and when you can't, what'll happen. So what do you think they planted? Okay, another thing with the tree line too as well. When they plant trees, right, that gives them an excuse to cut down trees. See, because you got to make room for the new growth. Can't just plant trees amongst other trees. And what happens is, when you plant like industrialized planting trees, right, you know that they're going to grow because people are going to maintain them. So you're allowed to go and remove trees that are already been there for hundreds of years, which is really good, because the more you cut the trees down, the more trees grow. It's almost like an infestation, or some type of weed effect. The more you cut the weeds, the faster they grow. The only way you can get rid of them is if you decimate everything, and that's not going to happen. Matter of fact, when they start cutting down the trees in the rainforest, and they cleared a section, when they turned around to look at what they've done, and they go back to the beginning, the trees have already started growing. They've already gotten to the point where they're real trees, because it takes them a while to cut down all them trees and remove them, because they got to quarter them and shit like that. They can't move fast enough to cut those trees down before they start growing back up. So if it takes them 10 years to cut down a section of forest, by the time they finish, at the beginning when they started cutting, those trees are going to be full grown, already grown. And that's how they can keep starting over in the same section, cutting down trees, you know. And it looks like they're creating a dead zone in the rainforest, but what they're really doing is They're cutting down the trees, creating sawdust. That sawdust turns into mulch. That mulch turns into compost. That compost turns into fertilizer for the ground. And everything that's in that area gets a boost of energy. And bam, you got a growth spurt right there. And they're able to keep that cycle going for 7 years at a time. Because, after a certain period of time, the land starts to produce shit that doesn't look like what was growing there before. So the trees might start growing oblong and crooked and shit like that. So they got to come through and they got to allow that. They got to cut that shit down and allow it to grow naturally. Because as they're growing, they're just running over shit too as well. So leaving it to sit for 7 years allows it to straighten itself out, if that makes sense. So you don't just have a tumbling of all this shit that's growing together and all fusing and it looks all crazy looking. But once you get into this stuff, it'll become really easy because anything you practice, you become good at it. So don't let somebody tell you that you gotta be born with a green thumb, because believe me, I wasn't born with shit. I was a destroyer. I would go out in the yard, and if there was weeds out there, I would tear the whole fucking yard up and be like, I got all that shit. You know what I'm saying? No selection involved. But once I started realizing how these plants how they work together and stuff like that, like tomatoes, potatoes, bell peppers, jalapenos, squash, and something else. These things grow great in the same environment. Meaning, like, you can plant them all in the same box. You can plant them all in the same field. Oh, cannabis. So tomatoes, bell peppers, potatoes, squash, cannabis, they all can grow in the same field at the same time. But as soon as you start introducing shit like corn to that, corn is a sulfur-based plant. So it needs a lot of sulfur. So it's going to kill the other plants to get that sulfur. It's going to leach the ground from up under them, so they won't get that sulfur. So if what you could do is you can offset a season with corn, and that's what a lot of these old farmers were doing. They would grow all their vegetables and tomatoes widespread for acres. Bam, bam, bam. Harvest all that shit, till it back into the ground, and plant corn on top of it. And then the corn will come up big and strong because they've just now put a whole new layer of green back out there, which is sulfur based, you know. And then they would grow where they grew the tomatoes, peppers, and potatoes, and cannabis, and all that shit in the same field. They would grow corn up on that shit. And then that corn would come up strong, and they would remove the corn, till all of the corn husk and the stalk and shit back into the ground, and then they would grow tomatoes and shit back out there, and they would grow healthy and big. So they would rotate it, annuals with annuals, perennials with perennials. Now, if you got apples, you're not going to be able to grow. Well, you might have a hard time, but you'll be able to grow. But it's not smart to grow citrus next to apples and pears, because you're talking about two different acidities in the soil. Citrus, like blueberries, need acid-based soils when apples don't. So you wouldn't plant them in the same areas. But you can plant apples and peaches in the same areas. And you can plant peaches and oranges in the same areas. See, like a peach is like a go-between between an apple and an orange. And you will get good product from it. And when the peaches die, fall on the ground, they become fertilizer for the apples and for the oranges, and vice versa. The oranges, when they die and fall on the ground, they'll be horrible for the apples because they're too acidic, and it would stunt the apples' growth. But the peaches, shit, the peaches will suck that shit up, eat it up, man, and you will have some luscious peach. Same thing with the apples. When the peaches die, when the peaches die, the apples love the peaches. So it'll eat the peaches through the soil, and it'll be great fertilizer for them. So another thing is, too, planting flowers and trees like pine trees and oak trees and shit like that. These were decorative trees for fruit trees. So The oak trees would make the apple trees, all the fruit trees, hardy because when they pollen and a fruit tree pollinates, when you get a cross pollination, so you get a hardy fruit. Same thing when you plant like berries and stuff around pine trees. Pine trees have a sap, which in some cases can be sweet or it could be bitter or it could be sour. Well, that's where some of these fruit trees get their sours and bitters from when the pine trees pollinate. So a variety of plants is what you need when you're planting out here. All right, so we're gonna go through and I'm gonna show you guys some video of some of the shit that I do. I'm supposed to be seeing what you are doing. Yeah, I'm about to show it right now. My bad. Where is he at? Reggie. Now, this stuff over here, believe it or not, fertilizer. I know it looks like a bunch of trash, but this is fertilizer. This is a compost heap. Looks like a bunch of trash. I got fucking egg cartons up in there, chicken wire, and all that shit. But believe it or not, all of the stuff goes into the ground. All right. Now, this is how it looks when I first start off the compost heap. And then as it progresses, it starts to look like this. This is a mixture of weed, sagebrush, and all kind of shit that I had from my yard. Even the damn nesting box mats for the chickens. It ain't nothing but like husk, wood, and shit like that. It breaks down. All right. And so you guys don't understand. Galvanized steel and tin and iron is what's in the soil already. So when you put metals on top of dirt and it rains, that shit leaches into the dirt. Yeah. I didn't know that at first because I was like, don't put no wire in my shit at first when I first started off. But then I realized I don't have to supplement iron, magnesium, zinc, and shit like that because galvanized steel, shit that rust has zinc in it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm getting the nutrients from that metal. And then after you get broken down, this is what you end up with. So I got like 3 stages here. I got the beginner stage, the intermediate stage, and I got the professional stage. This is where you want soil to be at. Now this right here is rich. It's covered in sand, but you know that's topsoil. Bring them out here and I break them down and I reuse the dirt, or I'll just put the dirt back into my compost heap. All right. And as you can see, shit goes around it. I got to come out here literally every so often and pull all of this shit up because it'll start growing into my planter box where I keep my compost and shit at, or it'll grow around it because all of that stuff when it's raining is neutralizing, it's making nutrients in this entire area. So I don't really have to do any amending to the soil over here where my corn's at. It's getting it from the damn planter boxes that's 5 to 10 feet away. You know, and I don't plant everywhere. I plant in some places, and then I amend in some places. Like right here is an area that caught some corn seeds from when I was growing corn right there. Now that happens too. The wind will come and blow, pick up your seeds, and toss them in other places as well. So you'll start having shit coming up in other places. But this is just an empty planter box that when I finish this season, I'm gonna drop some seeds in there for during the winter time and do a little bit of winter sowing. But corn is good to build the soil. You know why? Because it'll suck up all the salt out the soil. Will make your soil neutral. It'll bring the pH back to 7. If your soil is real salty, this is like silica, which is like a salt base crystal. The it will thrive in this shit. But that area where it's at, it's not gonna have no sulfur in that area. So if you're growing something that requires sulfur, you're gonna have to amend that ground. Or what I'm gonna do is remove the corn, because here's the corn right here. And I got corns all over in this bitch. Remove the corns off the husk. This entire husk is sulfur rich. Now you can do it two ways. You can grind it up in a chipper, and look at my little buddy right there. He's just chilling. He's like, I'm just hanging out over here. You know what I'm saying? The horny toads. But now these animals, I don't try to keep them out of my garden because they go in there, they mate, they breed, they live in there, they shit and they piss all over the place, adding nutrients to my soil too as well, and they keep down the bugs. So I don't really mess with them. But you can take this thing and you can burn it. I know that sounds counterproductive, but burning this corn will make the ground 10 to 15 times more fertile than if you just tilled it in, because burning is going to turn it into ash. It's going to turn that sulfur into brimstone. And brimstone is a rich mineral based substance and that when growing is like the best fucking fertilizer you can get. That's how we came up with synthetic fertilizers. Most synthetic fertilizers is burnt farm produce and shit like this. And they turn it into burnt fertilizer and they turn it into a sulfur based product. You know? I hate to say it, but a lot of people missed the mark when they started interpreting that Sodom and Gomorrah story because it wasn't about fucking people being homosexual. It was about farming and animals. So when you burn this shit, it's gonna make the ground over here so fertile. And you till it back in, this ground, this dirt inside of these little boxes is gonna be pitch black, man. It's gonna look like the blackest soil that you see down south. And that right there is perfect for any perennial, any plant that's gonna come back year after year. You know what I'm saying? Because perennials, they won't suck up the most nutrients. But if you're just gonna plant some annual on there, it's good for tomatoes, squash. See, like this, here goes one of my squash right here. I'm about to harvest it pretty soon. And that booger just grew in a week. We've already taken three off the branch. And I want to show you guys something too. There's a lizard up over here called the Lazarus lizard. All right, like Lazarus from the Bible. This motherfucker will go and he will freeze to death, like really solid in the wintertime, underground. You can dig them up. They hard as a rock. They all withered up and everything. But when the summertime comes and the ground heats up, as soon as water touches them, they revive and come back to life. That's why they call them the Lazarus lizard. But the corn is perfect for sulfur. So when you're growing corn, you need a steady supply of manure, steady supply. Because every 2 weeks you need to amend the soil because this right here to create this corn right here takes a lot of energy from the ground. You know, as you can see, I have cantaloupe planted right here. This was an experiment I had. This is cantaloupe, probably a dozen seeds. This cantaloupe has been in the ground as long as this corn right here. But you see how lush and big this corn is and how small and stunted this cantaloupe is? It's because, first of all, cantaloupes require lots of nutrients as well as corn. So the corn is sucking up the nutrients faster than the cantaloupe can. Now, when this corn finishes its process and it starts, and I stop watering, I'm just going to water the cantaloupe. The cantaloupe is going to get bigger because now it's the only thing fighting for nutrients versus just corn. So from just these two little plots of corn right here, I'm probably get about 100, probably close to 100 bushels of corn, 100 head of corn. Yeah. And from these plants right here, I'll probably get about 10 to 15, maybe a dozen squash, tomatoes, and bell peppers. And like I was saying earlier, when I was saying about doing a row of corn in the wintertime and then having a row ready for the next season, that's what this is. This corn was planted in the wintertime, winter sowed, and it came up before this corn was planted at the beginning of the season. So this corn will be sweet corn. And I know most people think that sweet corn is a different seed than regular corn. You can turn any corn into sweet corn if you let it grow into the later season when it starts to get cold. See, because when the corn, just like every other plant, when it starts to get cold, it's fighting for life. So it's searching for what? is searching for carbohydrates in the soil to give it energy. Sugar is energy. And I come out here and I give my plants sugar water, either with molasses or white sugar, regular sugar. And what that does is it'll feed the microbes like yeast, uh, streptococcus. There's another one too that grows in the soil that loves sugar. That's why the dentists tell you to stop eating sugar. I'm not gonna get into that because it's gonna fuck up a bunch of people and shit. But look, like I said, it loves sugar. So you bring some sugar water out here and you pour it in here. It doesn't have to be much, maybe a cup of sugar dissolved in about a gallon of water per planter box. And that's enough to boost and energize the microbes in the soil to give your plants a head start on the season. So when this corn's done, this corn is going to start kicking in. It's going to become sweet corn because it's going to start looking for energy in the cold season to keep warm and keep on coming back. The colder the weather is, the sweeter your fruits and vegetables will be. Remember that. Now, I learned that from just trial and error, not from learning it from other people. I noticed that when I would pick fruits and vegetables in the wintertime, they'd be way more sweeter than if I picked them in the middle of the season when they grow and they're ripe and they're fresh. So just a little food for thought. But look, another thing is too, if you're ever going to till these plants back into the soil, you better know that part of it is going to grow back the next season, depending on how good you tilling it into the soil. So if you don't pull off all the corn, even the little baby corns like this produce seeds, which is the kernels. And those kernels are going to grow back the next year. So you'll start having corn come through there. So you want to remove all of the plant producing uh, parts of the plant. Let me show you if I can catch this guy over here, because there he is. And I don't know if you guys can see him, but looked like he been fighting with the other one and lost part of his tail. And that's the Lazarus lizard. Lazarus. All right. Okay, so that's the shit about the corn. Now, peaches, like I said, peaches can do good around apples and oranges, and can do good around juice plants altogether. Peaches are universal. All right. But oranges and apples, they have a hard time growing around each other because of the soil pH balance. But with peaches, if you do not prune your peach tree, you won't get no new peaches the next season. See, because peaches only grow on new growth. They don't grow on the old dry brown shit like this. It don't grow on that brown shit. It only grows on new growth. So last year I didn't prune too much because my plant started looking like I was chopping its head off. So I let it grow this year and I didn't get no peaches, which is good because come next season, all of these new branches are what we call tops. I got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That's just 19 tops I'm seeing right here. But I also got tops down here too that's going to produce peaches. All right. Just like you have tops on cannabis that produce buds, only the new growth produces new fruits. So remember that if you got a peach tree. Now with apple trees, you can do whatever the fuck you want. But before we go over there, let me show you guys this pine tree right here. This pine tree, we didn't just get it because it looked like a Christmas tree. We got it for the sap, which is turpentine. Turpentine is a good pesticide. And that being, it will keep down the bugs and mosquitoes. Like right now, I'm standing by it. It smells like eucalyptic, like the shit you burn to keep away the mosquitoes. It smells like that naturally. And in the hot sun, you're going to get that fragrance more. In the wintertime, these will still stay green. Still stay green. Yep, they'll still stay green. But it's good to have a pine tree around because the pine needles, you can make pine needle tea. If you have gut problems or indigestion, you know, you can chew on these pine needles. If you have bad teeth, this shit will kill tooth decay. The shit that creates tooth decay, like streptococcus, it'll kill all that shit. Sore throats, It'll help you soothe the sore throat. Get you a peppermint and a couple of these. You chew on it, man. You're good to go. All right. And the sunflowers. The problem I see with sunflowers is this: they're good for attracting the insects for pollination, but they'll grow wherever the seeds drop. And the more heads you create, the bigger the plant gonna be. So if I would have came out here and pruned back some of these heads, I would have probably isolated the size of these flowers, and they would have been bigger. But as you can see, the bees, they love them. They love this shit. So I've been having bee hives out here. Where from? These bees are probably flying a little distance to get over here to get this honey, to get this pollen from these plants, and then they'll hit up all the other plants around here for me. Yep, they'll hit them up. I'll show you the grapes later on when I get done with this. So the apple trees, contrary to popular belief, you can grow apples from the seeds you get from apples from the store. And this is one. This is one of 4 plants that I grew. Okay. This one right here, this plant is probably 3 years old. 3, maybe 4 years old. Like I said, it doesn't become a tree until it's able to produce itself. So in about 2 or 3 more years, this little bush right here will start producing apples, just like this tree right here. Now this tree right here is about 11 years old. I bought this tree as a sapling when I first moved into this house about 10, 11 years ago. Okay, so this tree right here produces over 2 to 3 dozen apples. Okay, but not just the same apple. This branch right here is part of the tree, has the most apples on it. Okay, but this one right here that has the apples on it probably got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 apples on it. It's a semi-dwarf Melrose apple, and the reason being is because it has multiple grafted trees on it. Now that means that tree is aged differently, meaning that the whole tree itself might be 11 years old, but the branches that have been grafted on might be 6, might be 3, might be 5 and shit like that years old. So when they catch up to the rest of the tree's going to be huge, and then they'll start producing more and bigger apples. But these apples are nice, man. They're good. This is my own specialized apple blend. You won't buy apples like this in any other store. And it's like that whenever you grow apples in an area where you don't have apple orchards. See, because an apple tree can only be pollinated by another apple tree, or a tree closest to an apple, like a pear. And I'm gonna show you guys my pear tree. But like that little apple tree right there, it doesn't produce any pollen. It doesn't produce any flowers because it's still in the plant stage. And once it does, so that's 1, and this is 2 right here. This is my second apple tree that I planted from the store, and it's growing right next to the actual apple tree. And it's also probably promoting growth from the bottom part of the tree, because a lot of these trees, produce some type of enzyme that promotes growth of another tree. This is my other pine tree right here. It's older. I got it at the same time as the apple tree. And as you can see, I've been mending it because it's been breaking because of the wind and shit like that. But good to have, man. Nice, luscious needles like that. It's going to be good. Here's my other apple plant. Like I said, it's probably about 2 or 3, maybe 4 years old. It's going to need to get to that 7 to 8 year mark, and then it's going to start producing flowers. After you get the first set of flowers the first season, then you might not see apples the next year, but the year after that, you'll start seeing apples. And then there's pears. Pears out here in the desert are hard to maintain because they love water, lots of water. As you can see, my pears are few and far and few in between. Even got one of them little ones right up there, little boo-boo. He just barely hanging on keep it going. I got about, when I first started the season, I had 24 pears on here. Now I got 7. And that's due to because pears need a lot of water. If they don't get a lot of water, they'll just start falling off. As well as the birds love pears even more than they like apples because the pears are so juicy and they're easy to remove from the tree because they're just a little stem coming off a notch right there. I don't know if y'all can see it because I can't even see it. But it's a little notch right there. Once that severs, the pear will fall off the ground. That's how most of them, I would find them pecked all up on the ground and stuff like that. So I started putting these reflectors on the tree. You know, the birds, they don't like, the reflectors because it makes it seem like there's something in the tree with them. So they'll run from it. Like a little keychain with a reflector on it. And they don't come over here and bother them. So I'm hoping that I get these 7 pears off of it, for this season. Because I really like pears. Yep. And last year, I got apples. I still got some apples in the freezer. All right. Can't really see what you guys are right in the glare. This is the last tree I'm going to show you guys. It's really a plant, but it's a pistachio. All right. Pistachios don't really grow that good in sand because they are shallow rooted and they need something that they can hold on to. And I didn't want to, my wife, she wanted this pistachio tree. But pistachios trees have a hard time growing out here in the desert. As you can see, their leaves, they don't like to be whipped by the sun and wind and the sand. So they'll start looking all deformed. But mulching around here is something we just started, because we thought that mulching was going to be a waste of time because all the sand is blowing and shit is going to cover it up anyway. But no, it did pretty good once I put these little boxes around it. But mulching is really good because it allows the soil to stay moist because these trees need a lot of moisture underground. If they don't keep that moisture underground, they'll wither up and they won't grow these pretty little bulbs right there. Yep, that's the beginning of a new branch. So when we first got this tree, it was doing pretty bad, and it's probably like about 6 or 7 months. It's going on this first year. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully we'll be getting some pistachios here in about 5 or 6 years. Not to say that it won't start growing faster than that, but that's the estimated time that I'm giving it. And if you guys have seen, I got these lines going around here because I can water all this stuff at the same time and not have to worry about coming out here checking them. Just make sure that the hoses are over the planter boxes and it's on top of the mulch, which will allow the soil to stay moist up under it. But yeah, it's not that difficult. And we could be doing little clinics like this every so often just to give people updates on shit to look out for if you're living in areas like mine where you have to worry about, droughts and shit. But here where I'm at, we don't dig wells that's 20 feet deep no more. Everything's 100 foot deep. So we have forever wells. Yep. And they bathing right now. You taking a bath in that shit sand? Yeah. All right. But yeah, that's the basics of this shit right here. So this season, and I like the fact is that my corn stuff starting to come up, and there's other plants on the inside up in here. Like this hussap. That hussap right there is pretty good. I like that. That stuff is good for the chickens. Now let's go over here to the grapes. Now, the grapes, if you want grapes to grow year round, I mean not year round, but every year, you're gonna have to amend the soil. There's no questions in it. You got to. Especially if you have different breeds like I do. I have Concord, I have green, I have red grapes, I have the yellow grapes. So the thing is that you got to amend every year. But grapes are good to grow other plants around because grapes create a microclimate for their own fucking environment, which means that it's humid up under here. versus out there where I was by the corn and all that stuff, because these plants are literally raining upon you. When I water this stuff, the water goes straight into the soil, to the plant, and the plant sends it straight up to the leaves, and you can feel it sometimes like a little mist falling up under here. That's why it's cool up under here versus out there. And it hasn't filled in yet. So next year, all of this is gonna be filled in. So it's gonna be like a little sanctuary and shit. But I noticed something about these microclimates. When my grapes start growing good, my strawberries start coming back. See, my strawberries start coming back. Now they're building up for the next season, and I'm gonna get a shitload of strawberries next year. I got a few this year, but since I didn't have nothing growing over the top of them, because believe it or not, that little mist is hitting these leaves and it's helping these plants absorb that little water through the leaves, and it's keeping them moist. And who knows, I might even have some strawberries that taste like grapes and grapes that taste like strawberries from cross pollination. So that's one thing. But my blueberries have to stay in pots, because if they don't, the soil will leach out all the sulfur. Now this is what I'm talking about. These little yellow things right here are sulfur pellets. All right. Now these will grow great next to corn. These are sulfur pellets that come in fertilizer. All right. If you burn this, it's going to turn into a little oil, and that oil is going to be what they call brimstone. Because once it dries up, it turns into like a little crystal. That oil dries up to a crystal, and that's brimstone. All right. So animals love that shit, because what do they put out in the field with the cows when they're out there grazing? They put a salt lick, which is like a sulfur. So the animals will eat the plants that are sulfur rich to get that sodium in their system, so they can better, you know, metabolize certain hard as vegetables and shit that they coming across, roots and shit like that. But these plants, like this one, is a different type of blueberry than that one, and you can tell because this one is dying out here up under this grapevine. It doesn't need that. But the good thing about it is, I bought this plant for 30 some bucks, and got up to a year. I could take it back, get a brand new one, and start the process all over again. All right, so it's not gonna always work the way you want it to, because sometimes your body's plants and they can be dying already. They can have internal issues and stuff, which I think that's what this plant has. They've probably been fertilized too much, and then when it got taken away from the environment it was in, it died because of lack of nutrients. But I bought these the same time, two different types of blueberry plants. This one's thriving under this grape vineyard, and this one's not. So I let the birds have this one too. Plus, I give my chickens the blueberries. And when they're done all eating these blueberries off here, I'm gonna take this back to Lowe's, and I'm gonna exchange it for a brand new one, probably the same breed as this, because this one seems to be thriving in this environment. Now, I've had blueberry plants before, but if you don't get the pH right on the soil, it means making the soil acidic, it will not grow. Right here, this ring was there, was where my other blueberry plant was. Good job. But another thing that thrives next to these grapes, I got grapes all up here, man. Look at that. These boogers is growing all over the place. So I kind of let them go into the wintertime unless they're really ripe like those other ones. Golly, that's a lot. And I'll wait until the leaves die down, and then I'll start clipping them and cutting them. Because you should prune them every year, because you want to train your grapes. If you want them to go over the trellis, you got to train them. Because you're going to have them alfalfa sprouts like that. See, I don't want them to be alfalfas. I want them to go over there straight over. So I'll cut that shit off, because it's going to be hard. And grapes only grow on the green. They don't grow on the brown. Only on the green. So if your grape vineyard is brown and it's not producing any green, you're not going to get as many grapes. So that's why you have to amend the soil. every season right before. Ooh, look at that right there. That's nice. Yeah, this is the tree of knowledge. Oh no, the tree of good and evil. Yeah. But look, here's my pride and joy right here. And this is something I've been paying close attention to because I want it to be really good because I think this is where I'm gonna plant this all the time. And it's working pretty good. This is my watermelon pack. And it's grown over the last couple of days to where it's starting to branch out away from this area over here because I got it planted in between my grapes and my hops for my beers. All right. So beer hop and grapes make a good medium for our watermelons. And the reason why I know that is because I got some watermelons already growing on here. And not just one or two, it's a few of them. So they're growing, but they loving that sand because that sand, when it starts to cool, it'll start making them get weird. Right there, if I go looking in there. But I'm gonna wait, give it a little bit more time, allow them to get bigger, and then we're going into August, September, and I'm thinking around late September, maybe around about October, I'll start getting large watermelons. So I keep you guys up to date with it, and it's gonna be they're gonna be sweet as hell, man. Like I said, the cooler it is, the sweeter the branch or the fruit. And here's my strawberries. They're starting to come up over here as well. And that's because of the watermelons, actually. You know, this is a good match made right here growing. You got the grapes, the watermelons, and the strawberries right here. And I got some hops over here. So it's giving it a little bit of a variety for it to grow. Over here, I have my perennials. My sage is growing right here. It's pretty good. And my tomatoes. And you don't have to do too much with the tomatoes. These plants right here, to tell you the truth, were plants that I cut off of last year's plants and brought them back out here, let them harden off. And you see they're producing a lot of tomatoes. I mean, so many tomatoes, we don't know what to do with. So we just come out here and grab them. And I got me some jalapenos growing right here. And they got a bunch of flowers, so I should get a lot of jalapenos off that one little bush. And then, of course, tobacco, because you know your boy smoke. Get your smoke on. But these tomatoes, different varieties. Cherry tomatoes, some of them get big, some of them don't, depending on how you're doing. And they're always producing flowers all the way to the end. And that's because every 2 to 3 weeks, I bring a shovel. You can still see some of it. I bring a shovel and I scrape up some of that compost, sprinkle it out here, and water it in. I don't till it. I just sprinkle that chicken shit out here over this stuff. It's been sitting in the sun for months, if not years. And I sprinkle it out here. As soon as that water hit it, the microbes come back alive and they start doing their magic. And I come out here with a little bit of sugar water, put up in there every now and it keeps on going. This tomato plant over here, I didn't even plant this. And as you can see, it is growing out of control. And there's tomatoes all up in here. This is because last year what I did was I left the tomatoes on here and then they died off. And then I came back and I tilled it all back into the ground. So, my wife wanted to plant some onions and garlic out here, and see when you retill it, that's perfect for sulfur-based plants. Like if I plant corn right here after this year, same thing with this. After I till all that shit in, corn will come up big and strong over here. Corn, big time. You know the story about the Indians showing the pilgrims how to put fish in the soil when they plant the corn. Man, that's primitive shit. All you do is till in last year's crops into the ground. It's just like the fish. Till it back into the ground. That new nutrients is going to reboost the soil. And then when those plants come up, they're going to have direct contact with those tilled in plants from last year. Here goes another tomato plant that's just coming up on its own. And that's from the till method. Just till it back in. Then I got some mint There goes some more tomato plants. They just coming up all over the place. And all we had planted here purposely was garlic and onions. And we have already harvested the garlic and the onions out of here. So right now, all we're doing is allowing these tomatoes to live out the rest of the season. I water them because they good. To tell you the truth, these cherry tomatoes, man, them motherfuckers taste like I don't know what they taste like. I know they don't taste like regular tomatoes though. The motherfuckers taste really sweet and juicy, kind of salty like a little bit, and that could be because of the sand, but they pretty good. Yep. And then here comes the my biggest experiment is the damn greenhouse. And the greenhouse, like I said, if you don't allow insects in here, meaning like keep some flowers in here, because I got a self-watering system with that big blue jug right there. Fill it up with water and it just trickles in. So that's 50 gallons of water that trickles between this and that planter box over there. As you can see, it's starting to flood at the bottom. And I have squash growing in here, ground cherries that fell out last year that's starting to grow in here. Here goes some of the ground cherries right here. Those are ground cherries. And then I also got okra growing in here. Okra likes this environment because it likes really humid areas and shit like that. And it likes soil that's real dense. Dense soil helps okra grow. So the reason why my okra plant is not big is because it's just one plant. But the denseness, because of all these plants growing around it, is causing it to grow. Right now I only got one okra on there. So once it gets about 4 inches, I'll cut it off, and that'll be my one harvest okra. And hopefully the cutting that off will allow it to grow more. Here goes another ground cherry. Yeah. There's ground cherries growing up in here wild and shit. And then I got squash, which you see the little ones growing. I've already cut about 2 or 3 of them off of here. And as long as the flowers are growing, the plant will still keep trying to reproduce itself. As long as you cut it off. But if you leave the squash on there too long, the plant is going to think that it's done its job in creating seeds. So as soon as it gets to a certain size, you want to cut it off. And this one too is up in here. Now the whole squash plant, believe it or not, is edible. The flowers, the leaves, the stalks, all of it is edible. And just like you could cook squash, you can cook the plant the same way. You know what I'm saying? But you gotta watch out for bugs, those squash bugs, squash beetles. That's another reason why I planted it in here, because I wanted to make sure. He said I've been stealing from Lowe's. Yeah, man, it's not stealing. I paid for it. But see what Lowe's do is they'll get you all hype about a nice luscious plant right there, and they ain't telling you that they feeding this motherfucker every time they water it. That's not realistic. If I feed my plants every time I water them, I would run out of nutrients. I would have to keep on going by them. So what I do, I got my plants on a natural nutrient base, meaning that from the soil and then from the fertilizer. When I'm not watering with fertilizer, I'm watering the soil, and the soil has fertilizer in it too as well, chicken manure. So I do like a back and forth and shit. These are pepper plants and shit. So I'm hoping they grow up. And here goes another ground cherry plant. I'm hoping they grow better in here. That way I can carry over. And I think I have another okra plant back here. Yeah, I think that's okra. Yep, that is okra. Yep, another okra plant growing back there. But man, there's so many things you can do. And I built all of this shit from reclaimed shit. None of this shit's brand new. You see, I lined the roof with cardboard. You just gotta think it and get it done based off of what you're thinking, not because what you're thinking. And you gotta stick to your plan. You can't start the plan and then see something different and be like, oh, that's better than that. I want to do that. Because it's not gonna turn out the way you want to do it. It's like a progression stage. If you never built anything, right? Building a greenhouse like this is going to be difficult. a lean-to is going to be difficult. And what this is, it's just one greenhouse. I broke it into half. I bought this cheap greenhouse on because somebody bought it. They didn't want it. So I bought it. And it's just one greenhouse put together. It's just two sides. I took both sides and I put them up against my house. So I have a longer compartment to work in. And it still does the same thing. It keeps my shit warm in the wintertime, but it keeps it boiling during the summertime. But it's not bad, man. You know what I mean? You do what you gotta do. You know? It is, man. It's a lot of people are failures to launch because they're constantly doubting themselves. Like I need to know all the ins and outs of everything. No, you don't. You don't need to know every fucking thing about farming and gardening in order to start a garden or start farming. You just need to know what the fuck you're doing then. If I'm putting seeds in the ground, I need to know everything about putting seeds in the ground, not about what I'm gonna do when the seeds get in the ground, because that's another stage of it. Time, and I didn't start off with all of this shit. Matter of fact, all this junk was not back here. When I bought this house, it was brand new. The only thing was back here was this fucking sand. None of these bullshit ass chicken coops and these stinking ass chickens. None of it put. And I was working full time for the government. I was working for the Department of Defense. And I was working full time. On my free time, I was just going to pick up shit. You know, people was dumping shit, and I was picking out what I need, man. Old wood, look at this. This is an old telephone, old mailbox post. What I brought this shit home for, I don't know what the fuck. I was like, I'm going to use that shit in my garden. You see what it's doing? Taking up space. But these jugs came in handy, man. When you're out here watering the ground, I'm going to say just watering it with water, just spraying it on there. 90% of the water is evaporating. It's hitting the hot ass ground, it's spreading the fuck out all over the place, and the plants are only getting about 10% of the water. But if you trickle it out of a jug, of 50 gallons of water can water this entire plant, and it'll get good nourishing water. And slowly, you know what I'm saying? As it trickles, the water absorbs into the soil, waking up the microbes and the nutrients, and it's slowly absorbing versus dumping a bunch of water on there and it's scattering all over the place, and the plant's only getting just a little bit. None of the dirt is real soaking it up. See, as you can see, I haven't watered over here yet. I haven't watered over here, so the ground is really dry. Look at that, really dry. Really, 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 really dry. Look how deep I'm digging now. Look how dry that is. All right. So these plants have to go down deep to get that water. So the only way to get that water to go deep and to stay long enough for the plants to get it, it's a slow trickle. And that's how I water this shit. Let me see if I can find another squash in here. You can't be scared of dying shit. Shit that dies. You can't be scared of stuff like that. You can't be scared of dead animals. You can't be scared of dead plants. And you can't be scared of killing shit out here in your garden and when you're farming. That's a way of life. That's the way things grow. Things live, they eat, they shit, they piss, and then they die, and they all go back to the same place, the earth. So you can't be scared of that shit. Sometimes I come out here and I find snakes, I kill them, bury them. I'll find a dead rat, I'll kill it if it's not already dead, or I'll bury it. And that shit gets put right back into the soil. I'm not putting it on my plants or on my vegetables. It decays on the ground and all that becomes nutrients. But what am I doing right now? Oh, yeah, I got a water. So I just filled up this jug right here for the greenhouse. And now I'm going to remove it from here. You got to be careful because some of these jugs are under pressure. And one time I opened this bitch up and it bust in my face like, boom. But it's a learning experience, man. But don't be scared to do this shit. Hold on. Gardening is not something that only a few people can do. Everybody can do this shit. You know, you just gotta be willing to do it. If you're not willing to do it, then what do you expect? It's not going to get. Are you willing to come out here every day, check your plants, feed your animals, and water them, prune them? You know what I'm saying? You're going to find dead shit up in there, because shit happens at night that you don't see. So you got to be willing to deal with that shit, man. The guys, we have more of a constitution for that type shit because, dead shit don't scare me. But my wife, she come out here and she see a dead snake, she gonna flip her motherfucker. Oh, I ripped up the damn little fencing. That's another thing. You're gonna tear shit up too. That's what it is. This is a bunch of shit that you're doing that you're gonna tear up. You're gonna make look nice, and you're gonna tear it down. It's your shit. Do whatever you want to do with it. Whatever makes it easy for you is what you want to try to do. You see? I see too many guys come over here on these platforms saying what they're gonna do and how they're gonna do it, but instead of doing it, they just talk about it. And I've failed more than I've been successful. This right here with this corn, that's not an everyday thing. I might plant corn next year, or this corn over here might come up and it might not even look like this corn. All big with all them pollinators on it. It might not even look like that. Then what I'm gonna do? I have to figure something out. It's either something I'm doing or something I'm not doing. And all I could do is just keep on testing it until I get it right. But don't look at these guys on these platforms that's doing gardening and telling you, do it my way. No, do it your way. Figure out what works in your area because it takes zoning. This corn that I'm growing right here wasn't supposed to grow over in this area. This corn was supposed to be in an area that's below, 1,000 feet sea level. Like this will grow perfect in California. That's why I'm having some issues with the browning. You know what I'm saying? That's why I had to plant the corn so close to one another so it can create a microclimate for itself. See, most people that's planting this corn, they plant it in rows and they giving themselves a foot apart. There's no room between this shit. And see, I learned that because I saw that planting the corn away from itself that far stunts the growth. That's the little trial and error shit. So when I plant my corn, this time when I planted it, what did I do? I didn't stagger. I planted that shit right up on top of itself. In some spots, you got 3 or 4 stalks of corn coming up out of look like the same hole. And that's good because then you have natural selection. The strong corn will grow up through the weak corn and it will become like a mulch or, some type of barrier from the environment. And it'll allow the good corn, healthy corn, strong corn to get bigger and stronger. And then you'll get bigger produce. You get bigger yields. It's just little shit. And it's always good to have people to throw ideas around with and try and make shit happen for yourself in a group environment. Just to throw ideas around, because what I might be doing might not work in your area, but something you're doing in your area might work in mine. So I watch a lot of gardening shows and stuff like that, and then I do my own shit. I don't really have too many people in these communities I'm in that's doing this stuff because everybody's kind of like shaky on what they're doing. When all it takes is for you to get out there and do it. And always be proud of your progress. Always. I don't give a fuck if it's just a little bit. Be proud of that shit. Because you're doing it. You're doing it for yourself. And look at her. This bitch done picked all her feathers out like she got some kind of mental problem. That's why them other chickens don't like your ass. I like you though. Give her a little bit of grain. These chickens only need a half a cup of food a day. That's it. So don't be thinking they need that much. This is how much they need a day. That's it. Bam. And some water. They don't need that much. They don't need that much. And then she make an egg for me. No egg. But she made a lot of shit though. Gotta clean that out. But yeah, half a cup of food a day and some water. And they do the rest. And you got the psychopath bitches. Look at this bitch. She thinks she'll fight the chicken. She gonna fight for her food. And see, look, this is one chicken serving. That's it. It don't take much. You know, I just give them whatever I can, whatever I want to give them. And they got 2 eating boxes. And the thing about chickens is, when you got more than 4 chickens, you need more than 1 eating box. Okay. And then when you have more than 4 chickens, you need more than 1 nesting box. Okay, it's 10 chickens per nesting box. You know, because they all don't shit at the same time. Man, look at my guy. He's hanging out around. He's fighting with that with that Lazarus lizard. And he's catching them bugs. Hell yeah, get them bugs, boy. And he drink that water too. So, you know, it's like a little ecosystem out here. That's what it is, a little ecosystem. And it don't take much work, man. Anybody can do this shit. You know? Tap in, let me know if you guys want to do more of these little comments or these little conversations about this gardening shit and what to look out for when you're doing gardening and the little tricks on how to build your compost box. No work. I don't be out here tilling this shit, turning it. Man, I ain't turned that shit since I started stacking all that stuff in there. But guess what? When I get ready to use it, I'm going to take that wood out of there. The big pieces that I can't break up and put in there, I'm going to take that out, that sagebrush, all that shit. And then I'm going to get to the dirt that's up under it, or the sand and the chicken manure up under it. And I'm going to leave a screen in here, and I'm going to water all that metal over the top of that shit. That metal, that galvanized steel and aluminum and shit like that, that stuff is good for the soil. Because where does it come from? The soil, not from fucking outer space. Hold on there, guy. He like he running shit around here. But yeah, so don't get discouraged with this shit, man. Become brilliant with the basics. And the basics is putting seeds in the ground. Be brilliant with that shit. More seeds than a little bit. Put more than you need, more than you think you need in the ground. A seed pack don't cost but like $2 or $3, and you're gonna get 2 to 3 times that amount. You ain't gotta save them. You do not have to save them damn seeds. Put them all in the ground at one time. You know, and once you start growing them and getting your shit coming out the ground, nurture that shit. Nurture the little plants. Don't water them too much. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you watching them, and plants that produce their own seeds like this, you ain't got nothing to worry about. They gonna come back next year. These flowers, they attract a lot of bugs, a lot of bees, a lot of freaking prairie mantis, flies, all kind of shit, man. And these bugs, they eat a lot and they shit a lot. So these bugs is creating fertilizer and compost for you as well. Don't be scared of that shit. I got projects I start and don't even finish them, man. You know, like this used to be a greenhouse right here. Then one windstorm came and blew all that shit away. And then I said, I'm going to turn it into planter boxes. But ain't nothing over here. It's hot as fuck right here. So everything that was growing over here dies from that hot ass desert sun. I had some pumpkins growing right here. So you can see a couple of them right there. Pumpkins growing over here. You think them pumpkins came out? Them niggas was like, I'm done. I'm going to the upper room on your bitch ass. Yep, pumpkins died. And I was like, I'm going to move my shit over here. And then that's why I put those cantaloupes in the ground up over here. Because I wanted to see if they would still live next to this corn. But just like like I said, the corn is overpowering the soil. And see, all I do is, where's my shovel at? Because matter of fact, I need to do a little feeding right now. And it's not like I'm feeding, it's like I'm just taking dirt and moving it to one section, another yard. That's it. So I grab my shovel, come over here to my little compost bin. I'm not gonna hit you with the shovel. I should, because y'all ain't made no fucking eggs for me. And then I just mix this shit up a little bit. And just stir it on up. Crush them eggshells up in there. See? See how it's layered up in there? How you can see the layers of this crap that's been sitting up on top of each other. Tree wood and all that shit. I just grab me a nice little shovel of it. That's food right there, man, for these plants. Just this little shit right there. And I'll take it, throw it into the bottom. Nothing special. Look at that. That's one feeding already. See? Simple shit. It's gardening the lazy man way. Or really farming, because gardeners don't make compost and they don't do their own nutrients and shit. A gardener go to the store and grab them a bag of Dr. Earth or some shit like that. And then they'll use that. This is my Dr. Earth. And you just bring it, just drop it in between there, and just water it in. Nothing special. Nothing special to that. See? This stuff over here, look at that. Nothing special. Look at that. That's a feeding right there. You think I'm testing the soil? Doing the pH out in this bitch or some shit like that? Well, I'm gonna test the water coming out. I ain't testing none of that shit. None of it. And plants be tasting good. Vegetables, look, a squash like this at the stove gonna get you. You gonna pay a little bit for it, like $3-4 a pound, man. I'll fill this up. Shut that booger off. See, now it's 55 gallons right here. Gonna go in that entire place over there. But where I put the compost, I need to water it in. See, so I'm just wetting that shit that I just put in there. Wetting it, because that's gonna seep into the ground and make, with this water that's already in there, a compost tea. You know, I could put it in the water, but who wants to fuck around with shit water? Not me. I'd rather take the dried up shit and put it in the garden and just water it in. All right, now look, that's it. That's a feeding. This stuff over here, right there, that's it. Simple. It even got feathers in it. See, I just water it in, and that shit's gonna mix with the soil and the water, and it's gonna seep into the soil, and then that's gonna make your plants get bigger. No lie. Now you don't want to get this shit on your hands. That's shit. You know what I'm saying? Don't be outside playing in the dirt. Y'all don't realize, man, that this dirt has shit in it that'll give you cancer, all kind of stuff. Cause that's what microbes do. That shit get you sick, man. Cause that's how this stuff works. You know what? Let me hold on for a second. Gotta put this on here so I can hook up my little sprinkler system. And I'm always testing out shit, trying to make little gadgets and contraptions that's gonna help me out. Just shit that make me feel like I'm doing something. It's really not something that you really have to study to do. None of this shit is anything you gotta study to do. You know, I heard somebody saying something about going to agriculture classes. Man, the niggas ain't gonna teach you how to do nothing but play with shit. play with shit, you know, show you how to read pH for shit that you don't even need, man. I mean, I first started growing cannabis a long time ago. I was into all of that shit. I had my pH tester, had my PPP meter, PPRM meter. I had my light gauge. I had all of that shit, man. And I was feeling like shit because I couldn't keep up with the measurements. You're supposed to document everything. As soon as I laid that shit down and stopped fucking with it, my grows became bigger, better. I became more surprised with the shit that I was producing. And man, I was like, man, this shit's easy. Throw away all of that textbook shit, man, and just get back to the basics. Become brilliant at that shit. Just basic shit. Learning how to water. You really got to teach yourself how to water because a lot of us are heavy fucking handed. When I used to water, man, I used to come in there with a gallon of water, and I got a 3-gallon pot, and I'm pouring the whole gallon in that shit. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, the water ain't coming out the bottom. It still needs some more water. Man, I was killing my plants, drowning them bitches. So you got to learn how to use shit in moderation, and that's something you got to teach yourself. You can't just go by the book with that. Moderation is key. See, now when I water out here, I can water and put a lot of water out here on the ground because it's sand. It's gonna sink. It's gonna absorb all the way through. It's just that's just the way it is. But when I make little shit like this, little sprinklers, which I call like a watering horse, little shit like that makes it easier. I don't have to put it in the rows. I just lay the damn thing in there and then water it. I leave it in there for like 10 minutes and then it's watered for the whole day. It's good to go. Just PVC pipe, water hose, and connect it to another water hose. It's not that technical. But you do have to teach yourself how to use moderation and how to recognize shit. Like if I was growing these sunflowers for the seeds and not to attract the bugs, I wouldn't have let it grow out like this. I would have pruned it and I would have kept like 2 heads on here, because I want them to be as big as possible so I can get as many seeds. With this, I'm not gonna get no seeds from this. I might get a handful because each one of these little flowers is gonna produce about a handful, or probably like just a little bit. But if I really wanted to get sunflower seeds from this plant, I would grow them bigger than this because the birds have already started eating that shit. And the way you do that is prune off all the flowers. That way, most of the energy will go to those flowers that you got left. Same thing grows when you're doing indoor plants. And I want to show you guys some shit, man. If you don't got no indoor plants, I want you guys to get you some indoor plants. No less than 10. No less than 10. Anything over that is good. See, because the more indoor plants you got, the better they'll survive. See, because plants the same way, they create their own little micro climates. But yeah. Hey, squeaky. Them indoor plants, man, is good for your house. Keeps the air fresh in here and shit. He ain't out right now. Oh, this is chilling. Yep. But the indoor plants is what you're looking for. And I got shit like bubblers up in here. And these bubblers is what keep the house, especially when you run AC all winter or all summer, your house becomes really dry and shit. So you have to have something that's gonna create moisture. So we water our indoor plants with this water right here. And I keep it on an air bubbler so this room will stay moist. And we have plants that are having issues and shit. We'll bring them in here and let them sit in here in the dark and shit and let them chill. But that's about it, man. One of these days And one of these days, I'll show you guys the growth process of when I first start off with this shit. I'm not a camera guy, so that's why I don't do the camera shit. But I'll show you what I'm doing and talk you through it and shit like that. But other than that, I'm almost done, man. Other than that, man, I just try and keep the shit simple because it's uh it's not that hard to do, man. It's not. And I wanna start doing this shit where every week we can do like an update, look at the plants, go over some tips and tricks, watering methods and stuff like that. Also pruning and removing fruits and shit off the branch because that's another thing. When do you remove the shit? When do you take all your freaking work and cut it off? Because a lot of people just like seeing the shit grow. They don't want to take it off. They like, oh, it's growing good. I don't want to remove the tomatoes because they just look so good. You know what I'm saying? But nah, fuck that. Remove them. More tomatoes will come back in as you do. Ouch. You know, when they ripe, they'll just come off by themselves. You don't even have to pull that hard when they ready to come off. So it's not it's not the method, man. It's the person. It's the mentor. It's not the method. It's the person. You know. So because you can do it in a lot of different ways. You ain't got to do it the way I'm doing it. Figure out what's best for you and make that your like constant. Because the more you do it, you'll start discovering new ways of doing shit. Like we putting some roses back here. My wife is. We put one in the ground and we left one in the pot because we want to see if this is gonna kill it over here. And it doesn't look like it's doing too good. You know, maybe roses aren't supposed to be planted so close to grapevines. You know, because underground we don't see what's happening to the roots. You know, so we might not put this rose bush over here this close. We might put it somewhere up over there by the tomatoes or something like that. Either way, you know, these plants don't cost that much money, and Lowe's, they have like a take back policy. So if it starts to die on you, you don't have to sit there and be like, oh, well, I spent all that money on these fucking plants and I fucked that up. Nah, man, you take that shit back and you say, hey, the plant died and it didn't give me what I was expecting. And they'll give you another plant or they'll recredit the money back to you. I'll take the plant because that's what I want. And then you'll get a plant that's susceptible to your growing method and it'll grow. And there you are. You have it now. Now you got you a plant that's growing. Now all you got to do is maintain it. The watering cycle, the feeding cycle is all you. None of that shit is from the store or from the manufacturer. It's all you. And you're going to get situations where you have two plants you buy at the same time. One dies or is dying and one is thriving. You'll get shit like that. And then it'll let you know that you still got some growing to do. See? So when I get done with this, feeding all these little blueberries off here to my chickens, I'm taking that bitch back. Matter of fact, fuck it, I might just take it back like it is and get me another one and bring it out here, and it'll probably be more susceptible to what I'm doing. Knowing them, they're gonna nurse that bitch back together because they got that industrial strength ass fucking fertilizers they have up in there. They spraying those plants with every fucking day, and you literally have to put the plant through rehab. Now this plant, even though it's thriving, it's going through some little rehab shit too. You can tell it's from lack of nutrients. Because I don't have nutrients to be spraying this bitch with every day. You know, I have sulfur, I have Epsom salt, shit like that. You know, and it's doing good. But this one over here, it ain't doing it. It ain't falling in line. So we're gonna start over with this bitch. But my strawberries, my grapes, my strawberries is growing big, man. They even growing outside of it. See how they doing runners and shit? That's good, because that's how your strawberries grow, with runners. Probably next season, this strawberries will be outside. You have to grow a new cage And that cage is so the chickens won't eat my strawberry leaves because they love strawberry leaves. But I give them tomatoes. They love tomatoes. Go ahead, girl. Here you go. You better not eat one and give it stupid. Good trick. But yeah, I'm gonna get this one over here. Now, animals can eat raw vegetables and fruits and shit. Humans, we ain't supposed to do that. Matter of fact, most vegetables they eat, and I think the animals break the plant down better than we can. Turn that off. You know, because they can break down the fibers and all that shit that we can't break down. The corn and all of that shit. You know, my bad, guys. Yeah, phone went dead. I'm gonna holler at y'all another time. Salutes to the real ones.